Today, we'll talk about fighting cancer yourself. Specifically, we'll go over 3 things that you can start doing right now on your own. The common belief among the medical establishment is that there is nothing that you can do at home to beat cancer. That the only things helping against cancer are medical interventions. But this is just wrong. Scientific research has shown that there are in fact many things that you can do by yourself to help your body fight cancer. So in this video, we're going to go over 3 things that you can start doing today. By the way, I'm Cedric and I'm one of the co-founders of Marchwood. Just recently, we helped a prostate cancer patient go from a stage 4 cancer to a stage 1 cancer, prolonging his life expectancy by more than 3.5 years in just 5 months. If you want to know exactly how he did it, you can get a free guide to our methods at marchwood.com/mosaic, or just click the link in the description below. With that out of the way, let's dive in. Now, before we look into the 3 steps in detail, there's something fundamental we have to understand about cancer first. And it's this. All cancers, regardless of their type or stage, are characterized by abnormal growth. They kill us by invading, displacing, or destroying healthy and functional tissues, and instead replacing them by abnormal, dysfunctional cancer cells. But this also means that if a cancer doesn't grow, it doesn't invade, it doesn't destroy, and it doesn't displace. And thus, it doesn't kill. The 2 factors that determine whether a cancer tumor grows or doesn't is the growth rate of the cancer cells and their death rate. If the growth rate of the cancer cells is higher than their death rate, the cancer will continue to grow. And if it grows, it displaces, destroys, and invades healthy cells. If, however, cancer cells die at a higher rate than that at which they grow, over time the tumor will shrink and eventually vanish. Basically, the higher the death rate and the lower the growth rate of cancer cells, the better it is for the patient. Because of that, the main goal of all cancer therapies is to maximize the difference between the 2. Okay, so now we've understood what we want to achieve, so let's dive into the how. Eliminating alcohol can improve anti-cancer immunity. It does this because it allows your immune system to be more active. Your immune system will then target cancer cells more viciously and kill them faster, which increases their death rate. The reason this happens is because alcohol is immunosuppressive. Now, that just means that alcohol consumption inhibits proper function of the immune system. So, if we stop alcohol consumption, we empower the immune system to kill cancer cells, which leads to higher death rates and thus slower overall tumor growth. Of course, cutting out alcohol completely is optimal, but I understand that that can be difficult, especially when going out to eat or in similar social situations. A glass of wine with your spouse on the weekend or a beer with some good friends is a common indulgence all around the world. The good thing is that when consumed occasionally and in small quantities, the immunosuppressive effects of alcohol are much weaker. Because of this, occasional indulgence is acceptable, if not optimal. Still, these indulgences should be kept to at maximum a beer or a small glass of wine at a time, with at least a week in between. Of course, if you don't feel it necessary or you think you can do without alcohol completely, that's even better. So, you now hold the power to start improving anti-cancer immunity today. I promised you more though. So, let's get into the next nugget of gold. Eliminating chronic stress can help you improve anti-cancer immunity even further. This is because chronic stress, which is often felt as anxiety, apathy, or burnout, directly suppresses immune function. You see, psychological stress exerts its effects via 2 systems, and both of those systems are immunosuppressive when activated over a longer time horizon. This means that psychological stress can directly affect your immune system, which in turn can inhibit its ability to kill cancer cells. Here's the good news though. You don't have stress, you experience it. Because of that, you can control its effects by altering how you view your life and what stresses you're exposed to. For example, you can feel extremely stressed when all you think about is your diagnosis. But then, when you spend time with your family and focus on the joy of the moment, you might, in the exact same situation, feel far less stressed. What changed? Your perception. This means that if we can help you change your perception and focus on the now, you can truly eliminate stress without changing your situation. But it wouldn't be a Marchwood video if I left you with such vagueness. So, what steps can you start taking today to settle into the present moment and forget about a vague and uncertain future? The first idea is to set aside some time every day that is completely free of commitment and then go out for walks. Of course, that doesn't have to be a day-long adventure. Even just 20 minutes can have a huge impact. Optimally, you could also leave your phone at home or at the very least put it on mute for the duration of the walk. That makes it much easier to simply focus on the walk itself instead of worrying about the temptation of your phone. But even beside the walks, spending less time wrapped up in your phone or watching TV can massively help reduce stress as well. It counteracts the constant stimulation that our brains are subjected to in the modern day, and it frees up time which would otherwise fly by quickly, which makes the days feel slower and much less stressful. One thing you could do during that freed up time is to find an enjoyable sport. On one hand, doing sports directly lowers chronic activation of the stress response systems, but it also gives you something to focus on in the present, which makes it much easier not to worry about some vague future. Now then, the first two steps aim at reactivating the immune system. But cancer cells have the ability to avoid detection by the immune system, something called immune evasion. And if cancer cells are successfully immune evasive, even the most active immune system can't kill them. And this is where step number 3 comes into play. By starting alkalization, you can stop cancer from evading your immune system. So, what is alkalization and why does it work against cancer? In the biological context, alkalization refers to providing the body with the resources it needs to counteract acids. This is where it differs from chemical alkalization. Chemical alkalization is the direct counteraction of acids. The reason this matters is because cancer cells manipulate their immediate surroundings to create something called the tumor microenvironment, or TME for short. One of the differences from the TME to the rest of the body is an unusually high acidity. And while cancer cells have adapted to this, the higher the normal acidity is damaging to normal healthy cells, which of course includes the cells of your immune system. Because of this, immune cells inside of the TME are much less active than outside of the TME. Beside inhibiting the immune cells inside of it, the TME also affects the cancer cells themselves. Without going into too much detail, the acidity of the TME allows cancer cells to become much better at resisting immune cells even when detected. As you can see, the acidity of the TME both decreases the alertness of the immune cells inside of it and increases the resilience of cancer cells in the case of detection. The good news is that by biologically alkalizing our bodies, we can empower them to chemically alkalize the tumor microenvironment, i.e. make it less acidic. By becoming less acidic, the TME is made less damaging to the immune cells and less supportive of the cancer cells, which stops cancer cells from avoiding the immune system and it allows the immune system to better do its job. The best part is that you don't need any expensive medication. Alkalization therapy only requires a biological alkalization agent, such as sodium bicarbonate or baking soda for most people, or trisodium citrate, which is a widespread food additive. Both of these are cheap, widely available, and most important of all, safe to use. If you want to start alkalization today, you can begin by mixing 1 to 2 grams of baking soda into water and then drinking that 4 times a day for the next few days. Then I'd recommend to bulk order some sodium bicarbonate or trisodium citrate. I'd also recommend ordering pH strips so that you can track the progress of the alkalization of your body to ensure that the alkalization therapy is successful without being excessive. Once your pH strips arrive, you can ensure a non-excessive but successful alkalization therapy by maintaining a urinary pH between 7 and 7.5. Also, be aware that some food items or drinks, such as Coke Zero, do affect the urinary pH without much affecting the biological acid-base balance. That means that if your pH is usually between 7 and 7.5, but the day after you drank a Coke Zero it dips down to 6, that doesn't mean the alkalization therapy has failed. Also, be careful that the daily consumption of alkalization agent doesn't go above 0.3 grams per kilogram of body weight, and stop immediately if you notice any side effects such as nausea, slowed breathing, faster than normal heart rate, headaches, swelling, drowsiness, confusion, muscle twitching, or muscle pain. Basically, if you feel unwell, stop the alkalization therapy and see whether it improves. Lastly, to minimize the effects of the alkalization agent on your stomach, you can divide it up into multiple smaller dosages. And if you end up hating the soapy taste, you can try adding sparkling water or sugar-free vinegar. To me, that makes it much more bearable. By the way, I know this can be a bit much. So, if you want these interventions and more in writing, we've put together a free guide on our methods. It's called the Mosaic Method Guide, and you can get it by going to marchwood.com/mosaic or by clicking the link in the description below. So, there we have 3 things that you can start doing today to fight cancer. With these steps implemented, the immune system is now more active and the cancer cells less capable of evading it, which increases the rate at which cancer cells are killed. But if you remember from the beginning, this is only one side of the equation of healing cancer. The previous 3 steps only increase the rate at which cancer cells are killed, whilst leaving the rate at which they grow completely unaffected. So, as a little bonus, I want to give you one thing that you can do to reduce cancer cell growth as well. By maintaining the metabolic state known as ketosis, you can restrict the fuel cancer cells need and thus reduce their growth. Ketosis usually occurs because of a very low intake of dietary carbohydrates, such as during fasting or when following a ketogenic diet. This causes the body to switch from using sugar as the main fuel source to now using fat and ketones as the principal fuel. As cancer cells use sugar to fuel their rapid growth, the reduction of the availability of sugar helps slow cancer cell growth. Furthermore, the waste product of sugar utilization by cancer cells is acidic. This means that not only do we decrease the growth rate of cancer cells by restricting the availability of sugar, but we also decrease the acidification of the TME. And if you remember, TME acidity is exactly what we wanted to counteract with alkalization. But how do we actually get our bodies into ketosis? What can you do differently today to put your body in a position of better starving cancer cells? Like I said a second ago, the body usually enters ketosis when deprived of carbohydrates. Since fasting can only be maintained for so long before we need to eat again, the only way to achieve ketosis over a long time span is by adhering to a ketogenic diet. That is, a diet that eliminates any food that contains carbohydrates, such as most fruits, bread, pasta, potato, or carrots, and a whole lot more. You can measure your level of ketosis by purchasing an acetone breathalyzer. If you struggle to stay in ketosis despite eliminating all dietary carbohydrates, it's most likely because you're eating too little fat. After all, your body still needs the same amount of energy, but it can't get that energy from carbohydrates anymore, and instead has to derive it from the fat you eat. So, if too little fat is eaten, the body will instead break down protein, including the protein of your muscles, in order to cover its energy expenses, which causes it to leave ketosis. This means that in order to maintain ketosis, you have to eat between 200 and 355 grams, or between 0.45 to 0.8 pounds of pure fat every single day. Because most people grow up eating a diet that is very high in carbs, they simply aren't used to eating that much fat. Now, if you haven't eaten any carbohydrates in more than 4 days and you're either not in ketosis or you're feeling tired and sluggish, try tracking the amount of fat you eat and increasing its intake. Some tasty ways of doing this that I really like are either adding more butter to your food, adding more cream to your food, or whipping up a kind of dessert from mascarpone, high-fat quark, and some cocoa powder. Whew, we went over a lot, so let's recapitulate. First, we looked at the fundamental goal that all cancer therapies share. Then, we looked at 3 steps that you can begin implementing today to help your body fight cancer. And lastly, we looked at how ketosis hinders cancer growth and how you can achieve and maintain ketosis. If you know someone who would benefit from what we discussed, don't hesitate to share this video with them. Also, if you made it this far in the video, you might be exactly who we're looking to help outlive cancer. So if you want or need help implementing countermeasures to cancer, you can get in touch with us by going to marchwood.com/outlive or by simply clicking the link in the description below. Thank you dearly for your time. I wish you swift healing and lasting health. Peace out.